Welcome to the Dental Brief, the world's direct, right-to-the-point podcast produced to get you the information you need to learn and grow your practice. To learn more about our guests and find links to information discussed on our show, visit our website, dentalbrief.com. On to today's episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Dental Brief. Today we have from Nashville, a new Nashville transplant from New York, Holly Ann Mitchell. Holly Ann, say hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Hey, glad to have you here. I'm going to say Holly Ann Mitchell a couple of times. That's also your website domain, hollyannmitchell.com, for anyone who wants to check that out. But you said your friends call you Holly, so we'll try to remember Holly from now on. Holly, let me ask you, how did you get into the dental industry? How did you start working with dentists?
Oh, if we go all the way back, I was 21 years old. I had moved to New York City when I was 18 to be an actress on Broadway. It was the only thing I ever wanted to do. And I grew up in a teeny tiny little Florida town, and it was my voice that got me out. And so I went to NYU. I graduated 6 months later, a lot of student debt, and I didn't have a job. I couldn't get work as an actor, and I ended up losing my apartment and becoming homeless and sleeping on couches, trying to figure out what happened to my life. And so I thought about careers. I need to do something different. And something whispered to me, be a dentist. And maybe it was because I had just played Audrey in Little Shop of Horrors. You'll be a dentist. Maybe it was that suggestion. But my friends were like, are you nuts? Like, no, really, are you nuts? And I was like, no. I'm good at math and science. I have nice teeth. I like to help people. You know, Dr. Mitchell might sound nice someday. I think this might work. And so a friend of mine said, well, why don't you go work in a dental office first and see if you like it before you go back to school and do all that jazz. And so that's what I did. I called up a bunch of offices, and no one wanted to meet with me because I had absolutely no experience. So I said, look, I'll work for you for free. Just train me to do whatever you want. And so a practice on the Upper West Side of Manhattan brought me on, and we doubled that practice in a year because I ended up doing their marketing, and that was the beginning of my dental career.
That's fascinating. And, you know, in the Broadway, right, singing, is that why you're in Nashville now?
Yes.
Your voice
getting back to my songwriting roots.
Yeah. So you said something to me that kind of has stood out. And I'm sure to our listeners, it stood out to them too. You said you called practices asking if they had any work, and they all said no because you didn't have any experience. What do you think would happen if you called 1,000 dental practices in the country today randomly and asked them if they were looking to hire anyone who wanted to get into the dental industry with a college degree? What do you think they'd say? Well,
I think it depends on the practice, right? Because some practices, they just don't have time to train anybody. They're running like gangbusters every single day. And so they will only speak to people who can plug and play. And that's, you know, you close yourself off to a lot of people, a lot of opportunities, a lot of creativity and innovation when you do that.
Right.
But at the same time, we've got a lot of people leaving our industry right now. And so I think that people are more open to hiring and training people. Because here's the thing about actors, and why I always loved to hire actors when I was an office manager. They get to have a real job that they can tell mom and dad about, write home about, you know, and they can be proud about that. And if you have flexible work hours, sometimes it works really well for them. You know, my heart going out to all the creatives and performers right now who have been sitting at home for the past year.
So one of my best friends has made it professionally as a musician, but 20 years ago, and his girlfriend that he was living with, they're married now. I remember one time saying to her, like, do you know what you call a musician without a girlfriend? And she said, what? And I said, homeless, right? Because it's kind of how it was. She didn't think it was very funny at the time, but then I think she also was like, wait a minute, I am paying the rent here. So let's jump into the subject of our show. And I know you travel a lot. You talk to practices, you talk to people in the industry, you talk to people from, people that are answering the phones, to hygienists, to assistants, dentists, to office managers, to consultants, marketing companies, on and on and on. What's going on out there? What are you hearing? What are some challenges that you see that practices are facing, and what's kind of becoming a common theme in your travels?
Well, a lot of the practices that I'm seeing, obviously the pandemic has brought its curveballs, right? With PPE and talent shortages and things like that. And sometimes patient shortages, depending on where you're located. So, we've already got stress. We were a stressed industry to begin with. And now we throw more curveballs and more challenges on top. And practices are really, we're seeing a lot of burnout. We're seeing people leave the industry. We're seeing people going, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm done. And so when your staff is short-staffed and overworked and they're exhausted and maybe they're dealing with, kids trying to go to school at home and all of this uncertainty in the world, you're going to end up with burnout. And I'm seeing it a lot. I'm seeing practices who nobody takes a lunch break. Someone's standing next to an autoclave, hiding in the corner eating trail mix out of their lab coat because they're just trying to get through the day. And our patients suffer for it, and our case acceptance suffers for it because we're not having quality conversations and connections with people, and we're not connecting with one another. And the staff turns on each other, and it becomes a big culture problem. So that's what I'm seeing in a lot of practices around the country. There are bright spots, though. There are people who have used this opportunity to innovate and reimagine their business and why they get up in the morning and do what they do, and they've pulled together as a team and have gotten through this challenge and become better and stronger and had really a renewed sense of purpose through all of this. But it's a choice.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that we're not connecting in practices. We're not connecting with teammates, and especially in these period of times where so many people are at home, so many people are Zooming and having these video conferences and not seeing people. I think as humans, we're less connected than ever before, and that problem still exists in places where it's legally allowed to happen, right? So tell me, you talked about innovation. Talk about innovation in the dental industry. What do you think is going to change? What do you think are some things that are coming down the road that people are going to need to potentially adapt to?
Well, if you look at the statistics of anxiety and depression in the dental industry, they're really high. They were before, and they're even higher now with all of the challenges that we've been through. And there's a lot of reasons why that exists. Sometimes it's environmental, sometimes it's cultural. But I think that people who go into the dental industry, there is a sense of I need to deplete myself in service to another person. And I truly believe that there's a new generation of providers who are graduating right now who want to prioritize the well-being of themselves, their team, and their patients. And that's really what's going to be necessary for us to evolve, not only the health of our industry, but the consciousness and the capacity for our industry to create what is necessary to sustain.
So that all sounds pretty difficult. I'm sure it's a little easier than a lot of people. If you're overwhelmed right now, if you're depressed, if you're not satisfied in your life, what are some things that you can do to change that, like right now, today?
So if you look at the nervous system has two branches: the front side of your body, which is the ventral branch, and the back side of your body, which is the dorsal branch. So when we're stressed out, we have a Dr. Jekyll and a Mr. Hyde inside of us, right? There's the us when we're sitting on a beach with a margarita and we're funny and life is good and the best parts of us are coming out. And then there's the us when we're really stressed out and we're just white knuckling our way to Friday at 5 o'clock. And when we go in that space of stress, what happens in our nervous system is we have an overactivity of our amygdala, our lizard brain. And we go into the back side of our body, and the front side of our nervous system completely shuts off. So we lose access to the best parts of us, which are on the front side of our body. If you tap on your forehead, that's your prefrontal cortex. That's where your creativity, your executive decision-making function, your empathy, and your compassion live on the front side of you. Also your humor and your charisma. So all of the things that you need for case acceptance live on the front side of your body. And so when you recognize that you're in fight, flight, freeze, or faint, which can feel a lot like anxiety or depression, right? Because some of us, when we're stressed, it's our nervous system heats up. It's a lot of energy and we explode with it, or we get emotional. Some of us shut down. Some of us, we just want to lock the door, turn on the Netflix, and not talk to anybody.
Sure.
And so we're no good to anybody in that state, and we don't feel like ourselves. So just recognizing it's not you, it's your nervous system. Your nervous system has you offline. So how do we get back online? Simple tools of self-regulation of your nervous system. So if you think about when your nervous system is shut down, it's in frozen mode, freeze or faint. So when your nervous system is too cold, it actually needs heat to get you back online, to get back into that front side of your body again. So how do we introduce heat when our nervous system is cold? Well, sometimes just sweating, getting a good sweat on, right? Vigorous exercise can be really, really helpful when you're feeling shut down. Or spicy foods. You need heat to get yourself knocked out of that frozen mode. Now, if your nervous system is too hot, what you need is to cool down. You need to simmer down. So if you're in an anxiety state, deep breathing, meditation, things that are going to chill you out, going out in nature, taking a walk, those types of things are going to help cool you down and get you back online. And it's the days in your practice where you feel like you can't spare a moment. These are the days when you need it the most.
So speaking of needing it the most, let's talk about something a little personal here. And hopefully this helps our audience. I know it's your mission to be a blessing to people. It's ours too. So, we in my office, in my day-to-day, we have a weekly meeting, and during that weekly meeting, all of our team members, all of our employees talk about professional and personal goals. And almost always for me, it's, meditate twice a day, every day. And I will put that down in, 10, 15 minutes at a time. And so basically we're talking about a half an hour of my day. And I will put that down. And then, I will put these other things down that are extremely, vigorous. Ride the bike for 8 hours this week, lift 4 days a week. Do these things that are very tough. And I'm able to do those other things, but I never get the meditation down. And when I do for periods of time, it's amazing. It's such an amazing break from the day. My focus is better. Everything about me is better. Everything about what I'm able to do is better. And so I know the benefits. Why is it so damn hard to do? And so if people that are out there in a similar place that I am, where they know how valuable it is, they feel the value, but they just can't seem to make it happen. What can we do to make it happen? What can I do to make that something that I'm as gung-ho about as I am riding the Peloton?
Well, I love when it comes to habit change, if you want to introduce a new habit, there are a couple different techniques, and Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit, is such a great model for how to do this. One of them is called a habit stack. So whenever I do X, I do Y.
Right.
You need to introduce a new habit. Whenever I, walk to work, I call my mom, right? Because I want to remember to call my mom a little bit more. Whenever I brush my teeth, I take my vitamins, right? It just, if I see this,
Sure.
I do this. So creating a stack can be really helpful, or putting it in a different order. So if there's something that you never hesitate for, putting the new thing right before that so that it becomes a reward for you. So I'm not allowed to, have my afternoon peanut butter smoothie that always picks me up until I've meditated for 10 minutes. Because I always look forward to that smoothie. I know that it tastes good. It feels good when I have it. Whatever it is, that's something you never hesitate for, just hold that back from yourself as a reward and put the new habit right before it. And those are some simple techniques that can help interrupt that pattern. But what I love about meditation, because it is so simple, and the reason it's hard sometimes, it's not doing anything is a lot harder than just doing something, right?
Sure.
we have a culture that really values productivity. And so it can feel really, really hard to just not do anything. But the brain benefits, and you've experienced them firsthand, so have I, are so powerful, because when your brain goes into alpha state, which is what happens when you meditate, it's also called flow state. You have so much more access to all the best parts of you when you can slow your brain waves down. So creating an environment that supports it, creating external accountability, doing challenges with friends or things like that, all of these little habit hacks, because you know that there's going to be a better you when you're doing this on a consistent basis every single day.
Makes sense. Holly, I want to encourage our guest one more time to go to the website, hollyandmitchell.com. Before you go, I want to ask you kind of one more question. You work in coaching, you help people in the dental industry. If you had a couple of practices that were to call you today or tomorrow, what kind of problems would you want to help them with?
A lot of practices, they call me because they can't put their finger on what's wrong. It feels like a lot of things are wrong. And they often say, well, we're just not communicating, right? Or it's a culture problem. And so usually the first question that I ask is, where's the fun? Are you having any fun? Because there's a neurochemical for fun, and it's called dopamine. And the antidote to stress hormones is the happy hormones. So if your practice is stressed out and you're in cortisol or even adrenaline, the antidote to that is dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. This is the fuel that your brains need to help you all stay online and have the best parts of you to show up. So if you're feeling in a funk, right, just make a list of all the things in your life that bring you joy, and start adding them into your calendar, and doing the same with your team, right? Games are fun. Meetings can be fun, should be fun. Morning huddles should be fun. If they haven't been fun for a while, try to reimagine that with your team, what would make them fun. Getting out of the office, getting into nature, right? Finding ways to bring back the fun, because we wouldn't go a day without food and water. Why would we deprive ourselves of joy? Don't go a day without joy, because more of you will be there for everyone that you have the potential to impact on a daily basis.
That's great advice. Holly, thank you so much for coming on today. One more time for our listeners, hollyandmitchell.com. Holly, we appreciate you very much. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode. Did you know you can weigh in on today's topic on Facebook? Search The Dental Brief on Facebook or visit our website, dentalbrief.com, and just follow the link. We look forward to having you join us again on another episode of The Dental Brief.